Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome on Learn Grasshopper live series. And I'm really excited. I'm really happy because we are starting right now a new series about Rhino inside Revit. So we are going to talk about how to use Grasshopper inside Revit. I got so many questions and queries for my students that I should start showing how to use Rhino inside Revit. But I'm not a Revit user. I'm not a Revit expert. That's why I had to invite my guests. And today I have Jacqueline. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Perfect.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
So,
That's nice.
yeah. Hello. This time sound is loud and clear. That's good to hear. Last time I had first time in the Learn Grasshopper series technical problems, but I see that YouTube fixed all the issues. So hello everyone. We will start in 2-3 minutes. We will go directly to the workshop materials. I already seen a presentation, so there will be lots of good stuff. Tobias, are you Revit user? Just tell me. Let me know. So how many years you've been using Rhino inside Revit? Is it something new for you? Hello, can you hear me, Jacqueline?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I thought you are asking Tavish.
No.
No, actually, I have been using Rhino.Insight for the last 2 years. So first, I got introduced to building information modeling, and then I started using Revit. So I knew Grasshopper, and then I came across this Rhino.Insight.Revit. And when I started working on my actual projects, then I truly discovered the potential of Rhino.Insight.Revit. And since then, I have been using Rhino.Insight.Revit, and I've been very vocal about this tool. You can see from my LinkedIn, I post a lot about the tips and tricks. And also, I've been very active in the Rhino.Insight.Revit community. Yeah,
I really recommend to visit Jacqueline LinkedIn profile. We are going to share the link, so there's lots of good stuff. And question to all of you: we have already 50 people live. Do you know and use Rhino inside Revit? And please just write in the comments whatever you are watching it on Facebook, LinkedIn, on YouTube. If you don't know, if you first time hearing about Rhino inside Revit, so put 0. If you an expert as Jacqueline, so please put 10. Okay, we have some first. The line 7. Okay, that's good. We have Camille. Camille is 0, so first time about that, Camille. But hope that you are also Revit user. Just let us know if you just use Revit. So we have some 4. We have Olga. Hi, Olga. Nice to see you here. 6. I use few years. Aurelian, just put the score. What is your expertise level? So we have some 6. We have some 0s. Interesting. So still non-experts here. So I don't know if it's a good sign or the bad sign. What do you think, Jacqueline?
I think it will be good because I have arranged my webinar in such a way that not only the expert user or intermediate, but the beginners can also have some idea how this Rhino.Insight.Revit work. And to be honest, if you have experience with the Revit and you know some basics of Grasshopper, then it's really easy to use this tool. It's not that difficult. So in my case, I knew Grasshopper, so I learned Revit through Rhino.Insight.Revit. So for me, it was a little bit different. So at the end, what I came to realize, if you know Revit and if you have a basic knowledge of Grasshopper, then it's not difficult for you to use Rhino.Insight.Revit.
That's
It's
a
the same
good
concept.
news. That's a
Yes.
good news. We have first 10 points. We have second 10 points, but I see that average is a 5. I see that lots of 7. So yeah, so I think it will be great. We will try to. We are not starting this series. This is the first one from the Rhino inside Revit, and we are not starting from the really basic. We are going to talk about advanced thing, but I think like everyone who knows Revit, so for sure will benefit from this one. Okay,
Yes.
let's. We have already 2 p.m. Central European time. Let's start. We have more than 100 people live, so let's get started. As always, we are live on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. We will really appreciate if you can just click a like button if you are watching that on Facebook, LinkedIn, on YouTube. It will help us a lot. So today we planned for 90 minutes. We'll see. Maybe will be more. It depends about your questions. We have lots of material, so maybe maximum 2 hours. So if you are interested in this topic, so please reserve next 2 hours. But yeah, we're going to keep it 1.5 hours. Depends on your questions. So recording will be available to watch later. As always, you have to register through learngrasshopper.com/Revit DirectShapes. And as always, write your questions in comments. And we are going also to share the presentation because we are going to start a little bit about introduction. What are the direct shapes in Rhino inside Revit? What is direct shape in Revit? And then we will also show practical examples, and these practical examples will be shared with all users, so all can benefit from that one. And speaking about the benefits, so Jacqueline, he's going to show how to simplify the design and drawing creation. I think it is also a really cool thing, not only the creating direct shapes, but also all the workflow that he's going to show with the drawing. And also maybe some of the workflow to automate tasks and organize projects. And for those who are seeing me for the first time, my name is Chris. I am an online teacher. I'm a YouTuber and blogger from 2 years. I've been working 10 years as a bridge designer, computational engineer, but now I'm 100% focused on transforming engineers' work into fun with programming. So through my learning platform, YouTube channel, this webinar, this workshop as today, I'm trying to transform engineering work. I'm also connected with the university. So at the NTNU, Norwegian University, we already teach students on the last year Grasshopper, Python, and C#. And it's really showing how the industry is changing. But this workshop is not about me. We are starting new series. I'm really excited. This is new series, and we are going to focus in this series about Revit. Grasshopper and Rhino now can be used in Revit. It's already 3 years, Jacqueline. How many years is it already available?
I think more than 3 years.
More than three years. But the first version maybe were not that good to speak it that way. But in the last development, there is more tools, and there is a really huge opponent to slow Dynamo. So Jacqueline is a computational engineer working with bridge design, but also with buildings, right? You're not 100 strict only working with bridges.
A few buildings.
Okay. Yeah. And today he's going to show to us how to use Grasshopper, how to use Rhino inside Revit. We are going to change this nomenclature. Sometimes we are going to use how to use Grasshopper in Revit, but like a normal way and the standard way is a Rhino inside Revit or Rhino dot inside. Yeah, you will find the different ways. So let's start with your presentation. I will share. So let's go to business and let's go to presentation, and maybe we'll start from the really basic. For sure, we have lots of Revit users here. They are already familiar with the Revit elements, Revit families, but we have also something like direct shapes. And today's workshop will be about them. So please tell us more. What actually is direct shape in Revit?
First of all, I would like to thank you, Chris, for inviting me over. And I would
it's my
also
pleasure.
like
it's
to
my pleasure.
thank everyone who joined in. And I have learned a lot from the Rhino.inside.Revit community, and I think this is my chance to give back to the community and share my knowledge and tell them how I have learned and how I have used this tool for my actual projects. So as Chris told you, my background is in bridge engineering, but in this workflow, I want to show you more generalized way, which you can not only implement in bridges, or maybe you can implement in your buildings or some other structures you are dealing with. So it's not just specific to bridges. So maybe during the presentation, or when we are going through the actual demonstration, I will share my experience, how I have utilized those workflows in my actual projects. So without any further ado, let's dive into the presentations. So DirectShapes are not oftenly discussed, but these are special types of elements or the objects in Revit, which are basically created by the Revit UI, but not Revit UI, but the Revit API. So you can create custom objects in external software, and you can just import them into the Revit. So you can think of like this: the logic of creating these objects come from somewhere else, but you can place in Revit.
Mm-hmm.
So if you go to the Revit API, you will see there are certain types of geometries which are supported by DirectShapes, and it includes solids, which are basically the BREP or boundary representation objects, and mesh, curve, and the point. Next, what makes DirectShapes very unique? So the first thing I have explained, the external geometry integration. These objects comes from the outside. They are not basically created with the Revit UI. If you are a Revit user, you cannot find any special toolbar or any component which allows you to create these objects in the Revit. So these has to come from the outside of the Revit. So that's why you can create some custom objects or the custom geometries which are usually created by the native Revit families.
What about Dynamo? Can you create DirectShapes through Dynamo?
Yes, you can create DirectShapes through Dynamo, but I don't like it because the user interface is, I don't like the user interface. You need to go and type, okay, DirectShapes, geometry, and other stuff. Maybe, no offense to the Dynamo users, maybe they are good at it. They can easily use those components. But for me and for all the beginners, I think if you look at the Rhino Inside UI, it's well organized. All the components are well established and well placed. There is a proper documentation for that, and you can easily use these components.
But today we are going to show alternative way to Dynamo.
Yes, exactly, which is Rhino.inside.Revit. So the second thing is correct categorization. Although these components are not created by the Revit, but because of the Revit API, we have this freedom of creating Revit categories like walls, floors, structural columns, structural, any kind of structural elements. And because we have this freedom of creating these categories, we can also tag these elements when we want to create our schedules or we are creating some documentation. Next thing is the versatility in the early design. So you can use these DirectShapes not for creating your objects, but also creating some placeholders. Maybe you want to create actual families later on down the line when during your design. So you can just use them as a placeholder or for some conceptual design or some custom families. In my personal experience, I have also used the DirectShapes as a placeholder. So we were not sure about the exact family, so I just put it there to work for other objects. And when we were finalized with the families or with the objects, I just replaced that DirectShape with the actual family.
So in the really early, so like more in the early phase, like preliminary, just without families, just go with the DirectShapes. It's faster.
Yes, preliminary stage also, and the stage where you are not sure, like if this is the final object. For instance, I was working on a retaining wall, and we basically used very these linked objects. So that was the IFC imported from some other software. So we wanted to create a retaining wall with the same shape, with the same location, but it has a different height. So instead of creating the actual family, what I did, I just manipulated that IFC file in Grasshopper. I created the geometry and push it into the Revit using a direct shape. So while we were discussing, we were changing, and when we finalized that direct shape, or maybe that object, and at the end, I just pushed that retaining wall as a family. So I don't need to create a family from the start, because when you create families, every time you make changes and you recompute the workflow, it takes a lot of time. So when you want something to be done very quickly, you can just use direct shapes. You can change the parameters. When everything is finalized, just push the geometry using the family component into the Revit.
Mm-hmm.
And the best part is the performance, as this data is very simple, so you don't have that much of computational load on your computer. You can easily change the parameters. You can easily place multiple objects in your Revit file, and it's very easy. It's computationally friendly, or you can say performance friendly. So there are some downsides to these direct shapes, as these direct shapes are not natively created in Revit, so you cannot edit these shapes in Revit. So we use this word of static shapes, because these shapes are all you can only remodel or reparameterize these shapes externally using Grasshopper, or maybe Dynamo, or maybe some Revit API, some programming. And the second is interaction. So when you place these objects in the Revit, you will not be able to interact with them. Interact with them, I mean, for instance, if you want to trim these objects, you will not be able to trim these objects, because these are not the actual objects. These just like the objects which you created and you placed there. So Revit does not recognize these objects. And secondly, you cannot host any object onto these objects. So that's the downside to using direct shapes in Revit. And again, the post-imported changes, so you cannot edit in Revit. If you want to edit anything, you have to go back to your original software where you have created these things. You have to change the geometry and then again push it to Revit. And this is the most common thing I hear about these direct shapes. Like, these direct shapes inherently don't possess these native parameters. For instance, the volume and the area. Although you can see when I show you in the Revit, these geometries are properly categorized. You will see the parameters, but you won't see the values. The volume value is missing, the area calculations are missing. So what you can do, you need to do these calculations in Grasshopper, and then you can push these values as a parameter and attach those parameters to your direct shapes.
Yeah, like a little bit work around, right? You can get these parameters, but they are not like from default with all these parameters.
Exactly. And the next thing is the hatch pattern. When you cut section through these objects, you won't see any hatch pattern, because these are not the real objects. So you will see something hollow. But there is a way to get around this.
And you are going to show it, right, today?
Exactly.
Yeah, Adhavan just wrote that the one downside is that for the future modification, that user must know Grasshopper or Rhino inside Revit.
Exactly.
And I from my perspective as a Grasshopper teacher, I don't think it's a downside. In my opinion, like every Revit or Tekla user should know Grasshopper.
Yes, so it's again, when you finalize these direct shapes, then you just simply push these geometries as an actual Revit family. You don't need to place them as a direct shape in your model. I don't do that. When I finalize something, I just push these things as a actual Revit family. And when you place this object as actual Revit family, no one can say that, okay, it's not the actual object or it's created somewhere else.
Okay, so we know the downsides. We know good sides and downsides. So now we are natural to that. Before we're going to, if you go to the next slide, we have some suggestion. Instead of using direct shape, why can't we use adaptive family, which can be modified in the future for non-Grasshopper users, and it works with points?
Yes, adaptive families are basically native families. So that's different from DirectShapes. If you want to do that, you can do that. And actually, it's better in adaptive families. You just need points, and you can easily get those points in Grasshopper and place your families. But when it comes to unconventional objects or those which are hard to model in Revit, then it's better to do that in Grasshopper. And as we know, the Grasshopper and the Rhino, they have this robust capability with the geometries and with curves. You can easily manipulate and create very complex geometries in Grasshopper. And unfortunately, you don't get this kind of freedom or robustness using Dynamo or maybe with the native Revit families. So yes, he's right. You can use adaptive, but again, this is a native Revit family, and DirectShapes are totally different from these families.
Okay, but let's focus on the DirectShapes and what components do we have to create that in Grasshopper?
So yeah, that's the real part. So in Grasshopper, we have this plugin Rhino.inside, which give you this different components and offer a quick method to create and transfer your objects as a direct shape into the Revit. So you can see in Grasshopper, we have a dedicated toolbar for these components, which is DirectShapes. And based on the applications, we can just simplify them into two categories, like the one with simple add direct shape BREP curve mesh into basic geometry management, and the other one into complex, because in the basic, you just input one, you give one input, maybe it's a geometry, it's a point, it's a curve, and you can push easily into the Revit. But with the complex geometry management, you need to provide the location, you need to set the material, you need to set the category and the family type name. And other thing is, when you are dealing with the basic geometric management components, it always placed under the generic category. So you don't have a much freedom to use this or place them into other categories. So they will always be placed under generic model categories. But with the complex geometric management, you have this freedom to assign a different category, different material, different family name, and the family type. So the first one is the BREP. It's a very simple. Here I have created a simple workflow. You can see these objects. I just input these objects into BREP and push that objects into the Revit. And one thing to remember, when you are using the simplified components, your objects are always placed in relation to the Rhino origin, which is 0, 0. If your objects at 0, it will be placed at the same location in Revit. And if you move somewhere else in your Rhino viewport, so it will be updated accordingly.
Yeah, and it's not a problem to use in the direct shape in the local system where if you are working.
So that's the thing. So when you have a different coordinate system in your Revit, for example, you have set different survey coordinate system or the project basic coordinate system. What you can do, you can create your objects in Rhino, and then before pushing them into Revit, you can actually change your system or move your object according to that system. I think I have posted this tip on my LinkedIn where I showed that you can use this orient component, which allow you to set your object from Rhino coordinate system to the actual coordinate system which you have created in your Revit. So that's not the problem. So if you have a different systems, different survey points or the project basis point, then you can easily use this orient component and move your objects accordingly.
Yeah, and for those who are first time hearing term BREP, so BREP is the solid. So this is kind of a new name used in Rhino and Grasshopper for solids. What does the component active document do? Is a question from Felix.
So yes, so there are certain components in Revit which are document aware component, which basically allow you to connect with different documents. For instance, if I have opened 3 different documents, so what I can do, I can select a specific document and then I can push my specific geometry or specific element from current Rhino file to that specific document. So I have here, for instance, document 1, document 2. So I can push this geometry into document 1, and then I can push this geometry into document 2. So this basically allows you to control your documents. So if you are using only one document, so this will automatically consider the active document as your current document. So if you have a multiple documents, you can just specify here.
Yeah, that's okay.
So here I have created another example using this DirectShape BREP component. So here everything, this one is DirectShape component, this one, this one, this one. So in this case, you can create some complex shapes also. So for instance, if you are working on a project where you have finalized this core and you have finalized these floors, you can just simply push them as a actual native Revit family. And then you can use these objects as a DirectShape objects and you can finalize your facade. So once your facade is finalized, you can again push this geometry as a actual native Revit family. So you don't need to use DirectShape. So the other thing is, in this case, all the objects will be placed according to your Rhino origin. So everything has to be set in a correct way if you want to push this inside the Revit.
And I think this is an excellent answer to a question from Joseph. Can you use Grasshopper to create solid and void forms, meaning extrusion sweeps, etc.? So this is exactly answer that, yeah, you can create really complex shapes through Grasshopper.
Yes,
and this is one of the most beauty of Grasshopper.
Yes, and that's how I have done these things here with the sweep and extrusions. So another other component is DirectShape curve. So these are not mostly used components in Revit, but I have used these components as a reference in my workflows where I have to create some temporary lines, or if I want to visualize something in Revit, for instance, some placement line, I don't open Rhino. I just use this DirectShape. I see my reference lines, and when I'm sure, okay, this is okay, then I just delete that line. And the other way I have used this one, so when I was working with the documentations of the Revit, I have to move my plans in the actual project node. So what I did, the one part of the workflow was it was automatically creating this DirectShape curve. So I was just going there and I was just rotating that plan based on this curve, because I needed a specific angle at which angle I wanted to rotate it. So this line was giving me the reference. So when I had rotated my plan, I was just deleting this object. So after that, no one can see these objects in the Revit. So that's how I have used these DirectShapes in my workflows. And the next is the mesh. It's simple. You just input the mesh and you will get the mesh geometry in the Revit. But you have to be very careful. You need to create a mesh here. If your object is not a mesh, it's not distributed like these small areas, then you will find some error and it will give you a very bad mesh in the Revit.
It's really good. It's really great way to show terrain for sure. That you don't need Revit family, so just DirectShapes to say some feelings, excavation can be really, really cool way.
Yes, but I think there is a specific component for topography also. You can also use that one. It's based on the mesh and on points also. Yeah. So the next one is the point. I think this is the underrated component in this category. So here is the small part from my workflow where I have used it. So I basically work with the bridges. So when we had not a single track, but many tracks which were crossing over the bridge. So sometimes these tracks were not parallel, or maybe some of them was in curve. So the Revit users might know when you have unparalleled lines or something in curve, it is very difficult to create this dimension. So what I did was I was getting the section view and then I was just selecting my axis. So based on the intersection point, I was just creating these direct shape points and I was just creating these lines. So it gave me this thing like I can create accurate and dynamic dimensions in the Revit. Or the other way is like you can create these small reference lines here and then you can create this dimension. So that is not accurate, but it will give you some close to accurate dimension. But
But
I
you can
found this
hide,
way
but you can, but sorry, but you can hide these points, right? If you
yes,
don't
you can
like to
hide
show,
these
you show them.
points. Yes, you can use graphical overrides. You can easily hide these points. And that's what I did. I just hide these points in my project. So I have these 3, 4, 5, 6 track axes, and these were not parallel. I just drew these points, and after I have these points, I just created this dimension. And if I move my sections, these points move with those section and dimensions also. And now here is another component from DirectShapes. So this is the component which basically gives us the options to set the name, category, geometry, and the material. And based on these inputs, it directly creates the DirectShapes. Here you can see that I have created a different material for my and then for floors and for this crown and for the external facade. And at the end, I just created some drawings based on the floor levels and everything. So here I have used this convert material. Basically, you have option to convert the colors into Revit material, or you can also use the active material here. So just for the example, I just use this convert material here. So the downside to this component is you don't have the freedom to create multiple instances of your object. So these objects will be placed according to your Rhino coordinate system. So you don't have the option to create something at the origin and then place it somewhere else in your Revit viewport. There are some workaround with this workflow, but I don't recommend them because when you duplicate this object and using some other components you place at a new location, sometimes it changes the orientation of your objects. So if you have created a building and you are sure with the location and everything, just use the component. It will just directly place it and you can assign the categories, material, etc. And after that you can tag them, you can schedule them.
Mm-hmm.
And the final...
Just a good comment from Christian. You should always prioritize using native Revit families for the exact reason you are describing. However, DirectShapes are great for quick implementation. So yeah.
Yes, and I don't use DirectShape for the final production or for the final submission.
Yeah.
So when we are working, we know that there are multiple changes and this thing is not fixed yet. I try to work with DirectShapes because it's not computationally loaded families. It takes less time and you can easily move them around. So at the end, I just convert those shapes into native Revit families so that you can see the other parameters, you can edit them, you can go to the family editor and do other stuff. So yeah, he's right.
Yeah. And we have also the type plus instance. What does it mean?
Yeah, so this is the most useful component in this category, I would say, because this one allows you to define a type and then you can place this type at different instances in your project. So you can only define one instance. So it doesn't need to be multiple objects in your Rhino and then you can place them at different instances. So here you can see that I have created this column, I have created this one base plate, and I have created this foundation. And using this instance component, I'm just placing at different locations. So the other thing is here you have the freedom to create a type. So you can also create a type here. You can create a family name here just once. And after that, you just keep on repeating these objects in your Revit families, in your Revit projects.
So you need just a point or the plane just
Yes.
to show the location, and for sure computing time you're generating just one direct shape, and then you're just transforming it. So yeah, so mathematical operation, not physical.
Yes, you are just placing a different location. And in the today's demonstration, we will use the same object, and I will show you how you can uh, create these objects, assign parameters, create sections, create hedge patterns, create drawings. So we will use this object. So I will show you every step.
Yeah, that was perfect introduction, and we are exactly half an hour. So this was our plan, to have this theoretical introduction. We have one question from LinkedIn from Carmina. How you handle parameters with DirectShape, like work set or shared parameters?
I will show you in the demonstration. Basically, you can create parameters, import your shared parameters in Grasshopper, and then you can assign your shared parameters to your DirectShape elements. I will show you in the workflow.
So are you ready to go to the
Yes,
live stream?
Yes, let me share the.
So now we are going to live. We are going to show both Revit, Rhino, and Grasshopper. So we hope that nothing will crash.
Yes, so in advance, I apologize if there is some delay or the glitch. You never know, things happens. So just for the newcomers who are new to rhino.inside.revit, so when you install this plugin, you will see this additional toolbar here, which says Revit. And you can see that you have a different options here, like you have annotations, category, architecture, which include the architecture components. Then you have family components, direct shapes, documents, elements, and filter, and the other bunch of stuffs. So mostly we are dealing with the elements. Basically, these components allow us to manipulate our Revit objects in Grasshopper, and these components allow us to create the families. And there are certain components in Grasshopper which are basically, as I explained, document-aware component. So here is the tip for you guys. Whenever you deploy any component in Grasshopper, just try to use this component, show all parameters. It will show you all the hide inputs here, because sometimes you don't see the inputs, and you try to figure out, okay, how I can use other options, like sometimes the rotation is hidden, sometimes the location is hidden. So it's better to just explore this component, and you will see the hidden parameters. And sometimes you need to quickly connect your output with something. So if you right click on this output, you will see this connect option. It will give you some bunch of options. You can connect it to the panel, you can connect it to some family type, you can clone this object, and it also gives you the option to convert your output in certain data.
Mm-hmm. And it will automatically create parameter or automatically add component and connect
yes
component output with correct input.
Yes, so I connected the panel, so the panel is already there. And there is another very beautiful feature in this rhino.inside.revit. You have this tracking mode, which basically remembers when you create your object. So it's not like that when you created the object, when you open your Grasshopper script, it will create the duplicates. So that's the benefit of this add component especially. And then you have here settings. You can update the current object, so it will not change the Revit ID of that component. If you choose this option, it will create a new component with the new ID. And if you just disable it, it will create a new components, and it will be just, you have multiple options.
And as a default, is it just always updating?
Yes, it's like the Revit ID is same, but the object, if you have set different parameters, you can change the parameters and it will update the geometry. And now if you go to the params app, there are certain Revit aware components. So these are these small, beautiful containers which basically holds the information which is available in your Revit project. For instance, this one is related to the categories. So you have all the categories. So you can use these small components in your workflows rather than using some other components like we have here this built-in category. You have this big component. For instance, if you have 3, 4, 5 categories you are dealing with, you don't need to use these components. You can use simply this one component and you can manage your data and you can work around with that component.
And every time when you're updating Revit, so this will also update, right?
Exactly. But if these are the fixed categories here, so the categories will be the same.
Mm-hmm.
So let's move on to our actual workflow. So let me first show you our actual object. So I have created this simple object here. I have this foundation. I have this base plate here, and then I have created this column. So we will place this object at different locations on our grid, so at the intersection points. And we will also create the dimension for these grid lines, and then we will create the parameters, and then we will create the drawings for this project. So the first step is to create the grid lines. I have used this bunch of native Revit components. You have the option, you can add the different grids, and here I have just distributed my grids into X and Y directions. And at the end, I have just maintained my data structure to create this grid Revit. So we have this specialized component at Revit, at grid component. You just need the curves input and some other components. So it will directly place a grid lines in your Revit project. So here again, you have a bunch of options. If you press shift and double click, it will explode this component and you will have
Oh,
the
I didn't know
switch.
that. I didn't know that. Can you repeat that?
Yes. So now I have explored this one. So if you want to hide unused inputs, press Ctrl and double click, it will hide it. And if you press shift and double click, it will unhide all the inputs which are not currently being used.
Yeah, really cool one. Thanks.
Yes. So if you don't want to change your type here, and then you can use another specialized component, which is element type. It basically allows you to set the new type or get the current type of your object. So if I just connect my element here, I can change the grid lines options or the types which I have created here. You can see that. So now let's move on to the dimensions.
So we have created, this is like one of the things, like people thinks about Grasshopper, just thinks about geometry. But as you will show today, it's more, you can create all the objects. You can create axes, you can create documents, you can create sections and so on, right?
Exactly. So the next thing, we will add dimension to these plans. So here we have this specialized component for the add align dimension. If you check the annotation tab, you also have this add linear dimension. So personally, I use this add align dimension component because it will automatically consider the orientation of your reference elements. So if you are using this add linear dimension component and in your object it's aligned, sometimes it give you the error that your placement line is not parallel and it will not create the dimensions. In this case, yes, it's vertical and horizontal. It's perfectly straight. It will create the dimension, but where you have something different, probably it will give you an error. So in my opinion, the add linear dimension, it's the best way to create the dimension. It will automatically incorporate all your objects, the different type of orientation. If you have provided the correct references, it will create the dimension. So here I have already gathered my grids in this object, in this container. So this is a very useful container in rhino.inside.revit. Basically, this container will hold any geometry which is available in your Revit. So you can use this object to import your Revit objects into the Rhino. So for now, I have just used this one to store or to connect my grid lines here. So for instance, if I want to create dimension to this grid line, I have choose this reference and I connect this reference here, I get this error. So it says invalid number of reference. As of now, this is a bug, and I have already discussed with one guy from the Rhino.inside team, and he said, yeah, this is a bug. So right now it's not considering these grid lines as a valid Revit references. So there is a work around this problem. You can place some add detail lines here, and if I can show you these, so here is another tip for you guys. Right click, you have this option, highlight curve, delete curve, release curve. So it will basically show you curves here. So as you can see here, I have this small curve here. It is basically the detail line, and I have created this to use this one as a reference. So what I will do, I will use this one as a reference, and you will see we have these dimensions here. And if you want to check the references of your dimensions, you can simply use this annotate reference component, and it will give you the references. As of now, we have 2 dimensions. So we have 2 branches here. And in first branch, we have 3 references. First line here, second line here, third line here. And you can also check these Revit IDs. So in this dimension, I have taken this first as a reference and the last one as a reference, and you can see that here I have this same Revit reference here and same Revit reference here. And similarly, we can do this for vertical grids.
So you had to create also this dummy line as a direction,
yes,
as a reference. Yeah.
Yes. So because for now this add align dimension does not consider native grid lines as a valid Revit reference. So that's why I have created it. And now basically I'm moving my detail lines. And when I move my detail lines, I also move my dimensions here.
Cool. So let's go to the next one. In the meantime, Ilona just posted some problem with the direct shape. We see that there is some huge conversation going on. We are going to at the end of this session will be Q&A session. So Ilona, we will try to solve this issue and show you the. And there was one question: how from Chandra? How can we import a steel plate or bolt from Revit into Rhino? There is just also like graphical object that can be imported, or do you need to use other component for that?
So if you have families, for instance, for boards, if you have some adaptive family, you can just come here and then you can this add component adaptive. You can use this one, or if it's a generic family, you can also use this as component with location or with the work plane. You need to import that family and you can place that family to the desired location.
And you get it as a solid object in
yes.
Rhino? Yeah, as a bureau.
Yes. So now
let's go to the next one. It will be creating floors.
Direct shapes. Yeah, all the elements. So here I have already defined this thing. I have add direct shape type. I have already defined my category, which is a structure column for column. This is a family name. This is a time name, and this is the geometry. And then I have already defined the material, and I have done it for my base plate, and I have done it for my foundations. Now I have just created the direct shape type to generate actual direct shape. I need to use this add direct shape instance. So as soon as I connect, you can see that I have my columns placed at the grid lines. I have already extracted the cross-section points of these grid lines. I'm just using these here. So now I have my base plates, and similarly, now I have my foundations. And if we go back to 3D view, you can see that I have my objects correctly placed at the cross-section point of these grids. So if we go and check the properties of these things, so if you see, I have selected this column. Now it's correctly placed in the structure column category. Now there are certain parameters which are related to some specific categories. For example, we have this rebar cover, and then we have this volume. You see here the volume value is missing because it's not the actual Revit object, so Revit cannot recognize what should I do with this one. So it's just gone. So what you can do, you can just create a new direct shape parameter or a shared parameter. You can place it here, and then you can assign the value.
Because we have this all data in Grasshopper.
Yes, and then you have this base plate. It's assigned to structural connections category, and we have some parameters. And the third one, we have this foundation assigned to structural foundations, and we have those parameters which are specific to structural foundations category. And if we go to project browser, that's another drawback here. So you see, we cannot see these types in the project browser. If I go to the structural foundation, there is no isolated foundation here. If I go to structural column, I cannot see my I section here, I shape section here. So that's the drawback, as this is a direct shape or the native Revit family, so you cannot see these types in project browser. So that's why you cannot edit these families here. Normally when we have a family here, we go and we this family here. So that's not the case with the direct shapes.
Mm-hmm. And so everything is parametric. And everything is parametric. Every time if you would like to change the dimension
yes,
between the axes, or add some, or maybe decrease the number, so everything will change. You don't have to show it, but just to show, okay. Just to show to people, like for sure there will be some comments. Okay, I can create the same really fast in Revit, but when it comes to all the changes, so you can just really quickly change with one parameter.
Yes. So now, as you can see, we don't have any parameters. So then we move on to creating these parameters here. So if you go to this parameter option in Revit, you will see this specialized components for the Revit parameters. So here you can define a new parameter. You can add the parameters from files. It could be a shared parameters. Then you can query the parameters and a bunch of options here. So here I have already defined my shared parameters file, and using the shared parameter, I have imported this file here. And if I connect the output of the groups, so these are the groups which are defined in my shared parameters: the classification, identification, and the dimension. And if you want to see the dimensions, you have the definition. Sorry, you can see the definitions here, which I have defined: the direct shape category, family name, direct shape material, ID, and all other components. So here you have this input option. It's basically the filter. You can extract a specific group, and based on that group, you can extract those parameters which are placed under that group. Or you can specify a specific shared parameter name, and you can only extract that shared parameters. And if we go to Revit, I think it's in the manage. And if we check the project parameters, as of now, we don't have any parameters here. So as soon as I connect this one with the add parameter component, it will create all the parameters defined in my shared file in Revit. So now I have these parameters here. And if I check this parameter here, so this one is the instance parameter, which I have chosen here. And then it places all the parameters which you define by default in the others category, and it assign these parameters to all the categories in the Revit. So now if someone wants to assign these parameters to specific category, so we have this option here, or the component here, project parameter. Basically, this one lets you to set new categories for your parameters. So here I have used this category component to select categories and assign these parameters to those categories. So as soon as I connect this component, I can see my project parameters, and then I can see the categories here. So I have only used these parameters for structural column, structural connection, and structural foundations. So it will automatically assign these parameters to these selected categories. And here is the quick tip for you guys. Here I have used this component, and if you go to the manage collections, I have defined the data structure here, rather than using that built-in value component where you have to select the category from the list. So you can see that I have this structural column category, then I have structural connection, then I have structural foundation. So it not only reduce the component, it also maintain your data structure. And in Rhino.inside.Revit, if you want to create some workflow, you have to be good at the data management. If your data management is not good, you will break your workflow and you will find some problems. And it's very difficult when you have a very big workflow and to find those problems. So it's really important to maintain the data structure.
And for those who are not familiar with Grasshopper that much, data trees are lists in the lists. So we can call it is the nested lists. So you will see that there is a dashed line between components. So that's why there is a data tree. So
yes.
Many lists in the one list flowing through one component to another. So yeah, this is really great tip. And I think it's the same thing for all softwares that you are working. If you're working with Grasshopper, with Tekla, with Revit, with Archicad, you have to know and be good at data management, especially data trees.
Yes, and that's the beauty of Grasshopper. So in Grasshopper, you can easily visualize that data structure, and not in. You can also visualize that in Grasshopper and also in Rhino, but it's a little bit difficult, or it's tricky with Dynamo. If you are new to Dynamo, then it's very difficult to check how the things are arranged in the list or in the tree. So the next thing is, if we check our parameter here, so this one is placed under the other group. So what if someone wants to change the group of specific parameters? So here we have another component, which is parameter identity. Basically, this one allows you to set the groups for your parameter. So here I have simply divided my parameters in 3 branches. I want to assign this parameter to material group, these 3 parameters to other, and this one to identity data. So I have simply chosen my groups here from the built-in group component, and then I simply connect these parameters and these groups here. So you can see that this one has turned black. So it means that your execution has done successfully. And if you go to the project parameter, and then if I see DirectShape material, and then you have a material and finishes here. So this one is assigned to material and finishes here. And similarly, if you check the DirectShape ID, so this one is placed under identity data. So let's suppose you have 50, 60 parameters and you want to assign to different groups or different categories. And if you want to do it manually, then it's too much work. So I came across this kind of stuff, and then I realized, okay, I can do this with Rhino.inside. So this is a very simple workflow here. You can see that, and this thing has saved me a lot of time just managing my parameters. And similarly, I have the other parameters here. I want to assign some parameters just to structural connections, structural column, and structural foundations. And then I'm just changing the group, which is the data. So if we go back to our 3D view, and if I select this column, and you can see that I have this component which is specific to column length. You will not be able to find this in foundation. For foundation, there is a different parameter, which is a foundation size. And then there is a different parameter for base plate, which is a base plate thickness. So you will find some parameters which are common, for instance, DirectShape material, DirectShape category, DirectShape family, and DirectShape family type. These are the common parameters in all the categories. So that's how you can.
This was really good answer for this previous question, how you handle parameters with DirectShapes.
Exactly. So the next step is to import these parameters. So here we have this component query parameters, which not only imports the shared parameters, but also import your global parameter and the project parameters. So if you have defined any global or project parameter, you can simply use this query parameters component, and it will import all the parameters which you have defined in your file in Grasshopper. So now you can use these parameters in Grasshopper to assign the values to your DirectShapes. You can, of course, filter these based on the scope, name, type, and the group. And the next thing I have done here, this is the telepathy component. I have just stored these parameters in these variables so that I can access these variables anywhere in my workflow.
Yeah, this works like in the text-based programming, like in Python. So you can just use telepathy and just refer to your value, to your variable. So it's really cool way to not just look for your input somewhere in the script, but just to type it. It's really a great way. Okay, let's go to the next. So we have all the parameters. We have geometry of the direct shape. We have all the parameters. What is the next step?
Next is assign these parameters to these shapes. So we have this specialized component, which is element parameter component. And this component not only extract the values, but you can use this one to assign the values. So here you need the parameter name and the value name. Here I'm not using this DirectShape parameter for this one. It's a built-in parameter, which is the mark parameter. So if you select any DirectShape, you have this parameter, which is the built-in parameter. So I have used the built-in parameter, and I have used the shared parameter so that I can show you, you can assign values to built-in parameters. You can also use shared parameters for your DirectShapes. So I have already gathered the information regarding the parameter values, which is basically if I connect this panel here, basically locate the location of this direct shape based on the grid line. For instance, this one is A1. So the column here, this represents the column A1, base plate A1, foundation A1, and similarly, all the objects which are at different locations can be represented by this mark value. So now I will just activate these components, and we will see. So if I go to DirectShape, I have the mark ID for this one. This is the column A1, and this is the DirectShape ID. And whatever the column length is, I have just extracted the value and assigned the value here. And then we have, then we have the DirectShape category, which is a structure column. Then we have a family name, a steel column, then I-shape. And similarly, if I choose the foundation, we have other parameters for foundation. This is the foundation size. This is the material, and this is the ID. And similar for base plate. So here we can easily maintain and assign our parameters to specific direct shapes in Revit, and it's very easy with this Rhino.inside.Revit. And the next thing I wanted to highlight here, the material. So here you can not only assign these paint material here, you can just change the material here and it will be updated here. You can also use other material also. So here I have this concrete material. I can just go through this list and I can assign a specific material here, and you can see that
Can you create new material through Grasshopper, or you have to create new material in Rhino and then
so you have this specialized toolbar for material. You can create a material and then you can use that material for your direct shapes also.
Okay.
So let me change this one. And here you need to be very careful when you are defining your parameters. For instance, here is the instance parameter or the type parameter, because when you define type here, then this workflow will not work here. It will give you an error that, okay, this parameter is read only. So if you have assigned the type here, then you need to go and then you need to select this component element type, and then you have to use these elements, and then you have to use the type input here. to assign those parameters, because you have changed the scope of your parameter. You change from instance to type. So most often we have these problems. We have created the shared parameters, but we cannot assign these parameters to our family. So that would be the case. You have defined your parameters as type, not as instance. So whenever you have read only here, just try to check if it's instance or type parameter. This workflow work for instance parameter, but if you want to change into type, then you need to use element type parameter here. And now let's go to tagging. So now we have assigned these shared parameters. We can use these parameters to tag our elements. So in order to tag elements, we have this specialized component tag by categories. It basically uses the elements or specific category, and then it tags them. So here I have used this new workflow. I have used this category filter so that I can show the audience, like you can also use the filter to extract the elements. So here I have used the category filter. I just want to extract the structural columns from my categories. As soon as I connect with this one, I have all my columns here. And when I connect this one with the elements, and you can see
I really like how the filters are really fast. I really like this.
Yes, filters are really important in Revit if you want to optimize your workflows. And here, if you want to change the type, again, I have used the element type component. Now I have this new type with this arrow here. And if you want to change the location, let me zoom out. So you can just change the location of your tag. So let me do it for others. I'll just go through this quickly. And then we have a foundation.
So we are adding more and more. Started with the just foundation and beam objects. Then we made axis and dimensions, and now all the tags. So there is more and more coming, and everything is parametric. And there is everything parametric. And yeah, as we said, we are going to share it for everyone who registered on the website. We are going to share the script so you can play it with your design. And what is the input? There is no input required for this Grasshopper script. You start from the zero. No.
Yes.
You have to just be careful with what material you are using, and if you have this material and profiles. But rest
yes, we can
work,
also
right?
we can also share the Revit file so that they don't have the problems. So the next thing is, if someone wants, okay, I want to create some shoulders on these leaders. So once you create your tags, you have this component annotations leader. You can find this one here, and you can use this one to create some extra things in your tags. So for instance, if I connect this one and I set this one to true, you can see that now I have this shoulder here, and you can play around. You can move your tag some, and you can change your shoulder location. So it basically gives you options to deal with your objects in Revit. So I just wanted to show you, if someone is interested in creating the shoulders for their tags, so they can use these annotation leaders. You can also these for your spot coordinates or elevations.
We have really good comments like, thanks for sharing the knowledge. Yassar, I'm new to Grasshopper and I see that there is a huge potential here. That's really great comment. But we have also a right comment for Carlos that I would like to answer. It's very interesting, but it is supposed to be easier than the standard graphic interface for modeling. It looks like it takes very long time just to design a simple structure. And I can start answering this question. Like, of course, it takes time to make a script, especially if you're no beginner. But the huge benefit is if you are making this foundation plan for, let's say, hundreds of structures every time. So you have to just create one script and it will work for you. So this is like with a huge benefits, and the same for the changes. If, for example, someone architect is going to change the design, So actually, you can just write your one number and everything will change. It's like dimension, distance between columns, foundations, and so on. So this is like, for sure, some work has to be done at the start, but you will see benefits later on. Do you have something more to add?
Yes, Chris, you are right. Because when I was working with the documentation, I had these 10 to 15 bridges, and also I have these retaining walls. So we have some fixed set of rules, what we have to do, where we have to place our sections, where we need to place our dimensions. So it becomes very easy when you have some fixed rules and you have multiple projects. I just set one workflow, and every time I wanted to create the documentation, I was just running my section, my workflow, and it was automatically creating the sections, my documentations. It was setting all the drawings, all the viewports where I wanted to place. So it becomes easy. And he's also right, because if you're working on just one project and you think that there is no more changes, so I would also recommend to do it in Revit rather than creating a Grasshopper workflow, because it will take time. And the other thing is, you don't need to create a workflow from the scratch, or you don't need to do everything in Grasshopper. You can use these small workflows, and you can simply quickly do your repetitive tasks. For instance, if I give you an example, here are the shared parameters. When I was working with the documentations, I had almost 10 to 15 parameters, and those parameters were changing. They were keep on updating, they were keep on adding, they were changing the values. So the very first time I did it manually. I just went there, I added each shared parameter, and then I assigned the value. And when I did it, and the next time they say, okay, we have changed the parameters, and there are 10 to 15 other projects, we have to do the same. And I was like, okay, then it's better to create something which automate the workflow. So I simply created this workflow, and I also added some other components. For instance, I linked my Excel file with Grasshopper. So they were changing, updating the file at the background, and all the changes were accommodated in my Revit projects. So I was just opening up the project, I was running the script, and within a 30 minutes, I remember that I filled all the parameters for 10 to 15 projects. It took me.
So you don't have to make all the everything parameters defined in Grasshopper. You can use external like Excel, and through Grasshopper assign it to Revit. And there is one more question, like from Zaid. Should we have to open the two software, Revit and Grasshopper, all the time? And this is what Jacqueline was answering, that actually, like using Grasshopper, you can just use for some parts, like for the most boring parts or repetitive tasks. If you don't need if you prefer to do something manually in Revit, so you can just do that. You can just add a new annotation, new tag. You don't have to do it with Grasshopper. You can just close it and open it when you need this. So there is no need to open. But if you are using both Rhino and Grasshopper with Revit, so you have to open two softwares at the same time. And Carlos asked again, does it really improve productivity? Like, in my opinion, is like increasing a lot. And I think in yours as well, especially if you have repetitive work, many constructions, boring stuff, and you don't like to do things manually. And also for complex design. If you have a complex design, it's also improve productivity as well. Okay, let's go to next elements.
So now let's create the section for this one. Yeah. So to create the section with this component add section view here, I have already set up everything. I will just input here, and you can see that it automatically creates a section here. And I have created in such a way that I can place it at different grid lines. I don't know if you, sorry, this one is for the, yeah. So this one will place this section at different grid lines. You can see that. You can also move it continuously, not specifically placed at these grid lines. And then I have also the freedom to change the scope of this section. So this doesn't need to be very small or the wide, it's up to you. And then if we go to the section, what I have explained earlier, we have this problem, it's hollow, as this one is not the actual Revit object, so you won't see the hatch patterns here. And then again, you see when you create a new section, so by default, Revit give you some objects or some grid lines or the levels you have created here. You can also hide this one here. We have this component category graphic. I simply chose my category levels. I just want to hide this one. I just make it true. It will automatically hide these things in my view. And if I go back to the level, here I have used this component which basically open up the view automatically. You can just use this one. It will close the view and make it true. It will open the view and you don't need to go to the project browser and double click and open that one.
And we are showing just one section, but you can imagine that if you are going to create like 15 sections, so you can do in the same way. So automatically create for every, like this is a really simple structure, and for sure you will need maybe 2, 3, 4 sections. But if you something have in curve or you need more sections, so actually you can create all the automatically all sections.
Yes. So basically I set up this workflow because we had this restriction that we have to create this section at specific locations. So I had that location every time I was running the workflow. I had my section at the specific locations. I have already set up the scope and everything. I don't need to do anything else. I was just placing the sections. So now we have the section by default. If you see, we cannot see the scope of these sections. One way is that if you go here and you change this for clipping option, or you can set this option here, crop view and the other stuff here. But you can also set this one in Grasshopper. This one. Yeah, so we have this component here, view extent here, and if you make it true, it will basically give you this far clipping option. And if you see here, it automatically changes this option here to maybe not this one. Sorry. This one is here. So if I connect this one here, it basically changed this one to clip with line, and now you can see the line here. So what I have done here, these option here, view extent, basically this one show you the crop view of your section. If I go back to section A, and if I make it false, it will remove this crop view here. And this one, it will show me the crop view, which you can see here, this one in the plan view. And then if you want to change the extent of this section, sometimes we have this view is too large or too small. You can use the same component to set the new values for your crop extent. So here I have created this workflow which basically control the extent of this view. If I keep it a little bit short, it will crop the objects which are not in this view. And you can adjust it accordingly. And the next very important component in this workflow is inspect element. Basically, this one gives you the access to all the parameters.
It's really big one.
It's a huge one because there are so many parameters which are assigned to the section view. And you don't need to use all of them. The one you want to change, just use those parameters and just press Ctrl and it will remove all the inputs. Here I have used the for clipping. I use the element parameter component. I choose the value. And sometime you will see, you will not find the value here. You will see only the these index value here, 0, 1, 2, 3. So in this case, if I check here in this one, these indices will change this value. Maybe the 0 is representing no clip, the 1 is representing the clip with line, and 2 is representing the clip without line. So you need to change the index value here. You won't be able to see exactly this value here. And then I have changed the clip offset here. If we go to the level 1, I can simply change the value here. Let me select this one so that we can see. And here you can set the value for your sections. You can move this one a little bit closer, a little bit further away. And I will show you why I have done this one, why I just wanted to choose a specific scope here. Now let's move to the hedge patterns. So that's the real deal here, how we can basically add hedges for our direct shape elements. So if you go and check, we have this component in annotations tab, add regions here. This one basically needs a boundary. It needs a view where you want to add, and then you specify the type, what type of hedge you want to add in this view. So here we will simply connect these components, and we have this view here. We'll select this view, and I will connect this one to here. And you can see that we have region placed for our column objects. In this workflow, the key component is element view category. If I can show you this one in Rhino viewport, you will see it only give you the objects which are in the region of that crop view. If you see in the level 1, I have only chosen this much of the view, so it will only give you the objects which are in this region. So if I show you the other parameters like foundation, you will see it will give you the, I have this.
It's really a great way for cheating.
No, it's very useful, and I have used this one to get around this problem. And you can see that only this part here. So now when you use this component, now it becomes very easy. Now I can use simply this other native Grasshopper components to extract the certain faces. So in this case, I have just extracted this face. I don't need the other faces of my geometry. I just extracted this face, and I converted this one into boundary, and then I just here, and this one here view, and you can see now I have my boundaries here. And if I just change the type here, and then you can see that I have hedge pattern for my base plate. Now I have a hedge pattern for my foundation. Now I have hedge pattern for my column, and it's really easy with this component element view graphic view geometry. It has helped me a lot because when I was working with my project, so sometimes we had these existing structures, and sometimes we have these structures from the links, Revit links, IFC. So when you cut those sections, you don't find the hatches. You need to create the hatches manually. So one is you can do it manually with the Revit UI, and the other is you can create some simple workflow like this. And every time you have this problem, just extract the specific element, use this element view geometry just to extract only that part, and using this thing, you create this region, and you have this region automatically there. And sometimes we had this problem of setting the region position. So we had this rule that you have to show the new structure with the red lines and the existing structure the orange line. So when you create a Revit object, the hedge from the Revit object, you don't have the option to move these hedge patterns. So you need to create a new region boundary for that. So I use this workflow. I was creating this region boundary, and then I was simply moving those boundaries from the front and to the back. So it really helped me. Otherwise, you need to do it manually, and you have a big structure with a lot of existing structures, then it's a lot of work. Trust me, you need to create those lines and boundaries and everything. And now the next thing is, if someone wants to create a specific line style, in this case, we have this component which is add subcategory. It will add the new subcategory of line. So in this case, I have extracted this Rhino inside the custom line, and then we have this component category line style. And if I go back here in the line style, you can see that now I have this new category here, and I can easily assign that line style here. You can see that. Let me just change the view. You can see this line style here. And if someone says, okay, I have so many lines in my workflow, I just want to delete certain lines from my workflow, that you can do it by using the categories subcategory option. You can filter out the specific line, and then you have this delete component, which basically delete this object from your Revit document. Let me recompute this workflow and I will show you. Yes, so if I go back here and if I see that line is gone, so you don't have that line here anymore. So this one I just wanted to show you, if you have certain objects in your Revit and you want to delete them from here and you want to filter out certain objects, you can use this simple workflow, and at the end this is just one component which will just delete your elements from the Revit.
Yeah, I didn't know about that one. That is really cool and useful. Instead of, you can connect all of the objects and just delete it. If you don't want to have objects from Grasshopper, you want to maintain just for native Revit. This is really also a cool component. Where can this delete component can be found?
It's in the element. If you go to the element,
okay,
and then you have this delete component. There are so many components. There is one, this select component. You can select if you cannot find any object in your Revit view, you can just use this select component, select the specific object, turn true or false. It will basically highlight that component in the Revit. Now, the next thing is to create the dimensions. I have used the same approach, just created the detailed lines, and then I have used this align dimension component. Again, you have to be very careful with your data structure to automate the dimensions. So I just maintain my data structure and use these as a reference and line. I have my dimensions. Now, another thing I wanted to show is how you can basically create your dimensions, new dimension type. So here, if someone say, okay, I have this dimension, it doesn't look good, but I want to create a new dimension type, but I'm not sure what should be the text size or how it will be visualized in this Rhino viewport. You can simply use this component duplicate element. It will duplicate any element which you have in Revit. So in this case, I have selected this dimension type. It simply duplicate this element, and then I use this component element name. It basically allows you to select the new name. So in this case, I'm creating this custom arrow 5mm aerial dimension type. And once I have created this dimension type, I can assign the parameter. In this case, I'm just changing the text size. I selected the parameter here and then assign the parameter and then changing the value using this component. Now, if I want to assign this to these dimension type, I can just select this one, and you can see here when I change this value, it will change the text size and it's creating the new dimension type. So now you have this new dimension type in your Revit. You go back, edit, and you can see that you have a new dimension type. So if you want to do it manually, you every time come here, duplicate this one, and then change the size here. Okay, it doesn't look good. You again go back, do this, and yeah, this is one of the way you can duplicate the elements and you can duplicate the types.
Cool. We have already 1.5 hours of our workshop. Do you have more workflows to show? How many more?
Just one more. I will just quickly go
so
through
let's go through this, and we will go to questions.
So
what is the last one?
It's the second last. Basically, I'm creating the drafting view here. So drafting view, you basically create the details. So if we go back to here, view, and then I go back to the project browser, you can see I haven't. So in the project browser, we have this option of creating the detailing view. So I have created this drafting view. I'm just adding dimension to this view here. I just created some detailed lines, and then I'm just adding the dimension to this one. So now I have dimension for my column, for my base plate, for my foundations. You can use this one in your drawings and you can show the details of your column. You can also add some anchor bolts here, something else if you want to show. And and the next thing is if you want to create some schedules for your drawings, for your elements, natively there is no component in Rhino.inside. I have created this one using the Revit API. So it's just some Python code. If you know the Revit API, you can just write some code here. And when I use make it true, it will just
or even you can use use ChatGPT to write the code.
Exactly. So I have created this schedule here. It basically gives me the DirectShape categories, family name, type name. I have already selected my category, parameters here. So it's up to you. You want to use built-in parameters, you want to use shared parameters. So then the last workflow is to create documentations and the sheets in your workflow. So if you want to add the sheet, you can simply use this component, add direct sheet component. It will create the sheet in your Revit document. And if you make this one true, it will show you the sheet. So now I have the sheet. I don't have the title block. You can simply use add title block component. It will give you the sheet here. So now you have the sheet. Now, if I want to add my viewports here, I can use this component add viewport, and you can simply use this one. It will automatically add the viewport where you have set your location. And now we have this option here, like this text here. And if you want to change this one, you basically use element type, and you can select if you want to show it with the title, without line, with line, or no title here. So now based on this location, I will place other plans here. I will now just go to my 3D view. I will add the view here. Now I have 3D view here. Similarly, I can add the section. Here I need to
we can see that already all the magic is happening in Revit.
Yes, and similarly you can add your what was this? I think I have done some. This one was the drafting view. So you have this drafting view here. And similarly, you can also add the schedule. So I have already set up this thing here. You can just select the sheet. And you have this schedule here. And if you want to change the location of your schedule, you just need to change the location of your point here. So there is one trick. I just don't want to go into the detail. I will just give you the overview. If you have a fixed location, for instance, if you say, I want to place this schedule, it should be aligned with this line and with this line. Now, if I move this one, it just go beyond this sheet. There is one component which basically allow you to set the locations of your elements after you place them in Revit. So in this one, I have created this logic here. Whenever I place a new schedule here, it should be aligned with this line. And it doesn't matter if I change the schedule here, it will automatically be changing the schedules and placing automatically. Similar thing you can do here with your sections also. Basically, the trick here is to extract the boundary of your sheet. If I can show you in the view here, I think it's hidden somewhere. Maybe let me turn off this. View here for this thing. And I go back here. So you can see that you have the boundary of your sheet here. So what I have done here, I basically extract the boundary, and based on the boundary, I select the points, and then I try to arrange my a viewport here. Otherwise, you have in a lot of space here. You can put anywhere in your sheet. So there has to be some boundary for your plans so that you can restrict your plans within the boundary. So that's what I do. I basically extract these boundaries and I create some kind of logic. So if I move this plan here, this will automatically be moved with this one and it will always be aligned. And similarly, if I move this one, it will move this detail view here.
Yeah, perfect. It really shows all the magic. If someone is repeating this work, even just placing all the views on the sheet, so actually you can make a template for that, and it will automatically move it for all your annotations and all your views. So this is really cool way. I know that Jacqueline has many hundreds of tips and tricks that we haven't mentioned today, but maybe it's a good way to organize next workshop with all the tips and tricks. So maybe this will be a second workshop for that. Let's maybe we can make a stop here. We are going to share this file, so everyone can come back.
Play around with this one. So I just wanted to show this last thing if someone get confused. So here is one simple tip. If you use this custom preview and if you connect your elements, you can see the live view in the Rhino viewport. If you don't want to open you can just simply connect these elements and you can see these your elements here, the sections here, the section views or the plan views or the 3D view. So
really cool way as use Rhino as a viewport, right? Instead of opening all the Revit files.
Yes.
Cool. Let's go to some questions. Is this webinar for structural engineer audience solely to may ask architecture related question? So all questions are about Revit and using Grasshopper. So it doesn't matter if you are structural engineer or you are architect. We'll try to answer. If not, so we will not going to answer. But you are more than welcome to ask questions. So let's get. We have half an hour to answer all the questions. If you have more questions, so please ask. We have still time. Really great walkthrough. I really people already seeing that there is a. This is a great workflow that can be used for repetitive tasks and the complex design, and lots of great ideas and really cool workflow from the really start with just access to the finished drawing with all the report and so on. Just one thing at the end for those who are interested in learning Grasshopper in Revit, we have created together with my friend Jungfo Park, we have created a guide. It's called How to Learn Grasshopper in Revit. So actually, step by step, you can find information where to download Rhino and Grasshopper, how to get the license, how to install Rhino inside. So I really recommend. I will put it in the Grasshopper. It's just a website is grasshopperinrevit.com, so we can just go it and download it, and you can start it already use it. So already using. So let's start with some questions to you. Someone asked interesting one about the annotation for reinforcement, because you showed the annotation for modeling. Have you tested with the reinforcement? What is your experience with that?
No, I haven't done it personally, but if you can use DirectShapes, you can create some reference points or something like that, and you can create the dimensions. But in reinforcement, we mostly use these tags to show the reinforcement. Okay, what type of reinforcement is this, material or the grade size or maybe the diameter size. So you can maybe play around with the shared parameters or the directions, but there is no specific component as of now in the rhino.inside.revit to create the reinforcements.
Not yet, but they are, as far as I know, they are working on that, and for sure it's coming. It's a new structure tab in Rhino, so we see that McNeil developers are working on that. So yeah, and Olga also, can we push reinforcement model? There are some workarounds already, so maybe we will make a second workshop about that. We know I know some companies that are doing, but there is no native right now, but there is already some workarounds that already can create. Zaid, is it possible to do the same with other 3D software such as Civil 3D? Yeah, Grasshopper has a connection to many 3D software like Archicad, Tekla, to Revit. Unfortunately, there is no directly link to Civil 3D. However, you can use different connectors like Speckle. So actually, there is when it comes to connection to Grasshopper, can be used with many different software. Cool. Let's go for the record mode. Several projects had been entirely created using parametric design. The Muhammad Theater in Morocco, designed by Zaha Hadi, is a powerful example. Actually, there is more and more. Actually, every week I see more and more projects done in Grasshopper, and not just for architects, but also for structural engineers, and we can see that working. And speaking about architects, so we have Kripa. She said that she is architect. Creating difficult forms or curved surfaces is easier in Rhino. How do we translate it in Revit? Also, how can we do paneling on curved surfaces in Revit? Do you have any experience with that?
I don't have, but if you are using the curved surfaces, you can maybe create the families and you can push those families into Revit. So I think that's the best way. And if there's paneling, so maybe you can use some adaptive component to define your panels, and then you can push those families into the Revit using Rhino.inside.Revit.
Yeah. Was this session recorded? Yes, it was recorded, and it will be shared recording in tomorrow email together with the Grasshopper file. So you have to register. I sent the email previously. Christian had a great comment. Rhino inside Revit is great for geometry creation, but in my opinion, it's absolutely fantastic for analyzing geometry, as you can combine the data management in Grasshopper with the metadata in Revit model. I have used it a lot to maintain large and complex Revit projects. So it's really, we can see it. So yeah, we just can agree, right?
Yes.
I have mostly been working with Revit, but lately I have started learning Rhino and Grasshopper now. I can already see much potential. This is thanks for sharing your knowledge. So that's great. This was actually our aim of this workshop, to inspire people and to see potential. So it's really great to see. Let's go to more that. Let me see. I'm using DirectShapes to create the pre-stressed cable for bridge using pipe component, but it makes the file size bigger, for example, 3 gigabytes. And when I export to IFC, it takes 6 hours. Solution. So maybe you have, as a bridge designer, maybe you have some solution for that one.
No, I haven't used it, because for bridges, I have mostly used this bridge infrastructure modeler, which is from Sophistic. So it has these options. You can create your bridge section using this axis. It's the axis based. They have also the options for these, I think, pre-stressed tendons. I haven't done it, but I think they have it. So I don't have this experience creating this pre-stress with the IFC.
But let's come back to the similar problem that Ilana had. It's a long comment, so let's try to figure it out. A few months ago, I had an annoying problem using Rhino inside Revit concerning the display of the BRAP DirectShape. Front section view export to DVG was bad. The geometries were brackets created with the component pipe from a curve in Grasshopper. To solve this display problem, I had to create half pipe, 2 half circles, and then create a DirectShapes. Could you take about this kind of display problem and have to solve it? Have you ever had this problem? And yeah, it's really interesting solution to just divide it into 2 circles, and just that it was not problem with two half circles. Have you experienced that before?
No, because I have created these, if I have shown you this tower, these were the curved shapes. So I didn't have that problem, but what I remember from this Rhino.inside.Revit community, a lot of people have this problem. And this Scott Davidson, he said like maybe there's a problem with the tolerance. If you have some different tolerance in your Revit and the Rhino, maybe because of that you have these problems. So maybe try to change the tolerance and regenerate the family. Maybe you will find a solution. So personally, I haven't faced this problem because I have created these curved shapes and I didn't have that problem with this, discontinuity in the lines or this geometries.
And the second thing is also worth to check if the geometry is placed far away from 0 point. Maybe this can be also a problem. Sometimes I had some problems when this geometry was placed far away, so maybe it was the problem. Carmen also tries to suggest Ilona some solution. You were trying to see them in the wireframe in Revit. It might be due to DirectShape conversion. Essentially, DirectShape is used same way that CAD geometry is used in CAD. There might be some of them that were not imported properly in Revit. I would try to export them separately as a test to see what happens. This is also a good idea to test it out. So yeah, good luck, Ilona. Luca, a following modification on grid that you showed from Grasshopper will update all my structure built in Revit from the same grid. And this is the essence of Grasshopper that actually maybe we can try. Can we risk it that you can change parameter and maybe decrease number of axes? Can we do that to show show the potential, or it will it will explode? Or it will explode your computer.
Let's try it. Let me add one more grid here.
Or maybe decrease one grid. Maybe it will be not faster.
Okay, let's. So I need to recompute it again.
So we can see already some mess, but the whole beauty of that everything's supposed to be updated if the data tree structure is done properly. So let's find out. And in the meantime, I will look for some new comments. Let me this one. In the meantime, Alessia, is it possible to insert steel elements, plate, bolts, and the Revit nodes through Grasshopper?
There is no specialized component, but if it's boils down to the families, how you have defined your families. If you are using adopted families, yes, this can be done. If you are using some generic family, this can also be done. And then you have to select the locations. So if you have a good families, then you can create really good elements in Revit, even using Rhino.inside.Revit.
When I connect the non-planar curve to add structure beam component in Grasshopper, it's not working. Is there any solution to create non-planar curve beams in Revit using Grasshopper?
I think you need to explore that curve. Maybe that's a continuous curve or maybe something like that. Because when you add detail lines in Revit, if your lines are continuous, you will have this problem. You need to explore, you need to create discontinuous line. And then when you insert those as a detail line, you will not have this planar problem or discontinuous issue. Or maybe when you are creating these lines, you have a different planes. Maybe that one is in XY and you are creating in XZ, then you have to rotate this one.
Yeah, always when importing some curved lines into into Rhino, I always explode them and try to simplify them. So this is really a good recommendation. Maud, I think Autodesk has created the data exchange connector for Civil, Rhino, Revit, and more that could be useful. Yeah, that's true. I haven't tested that, but this is also a possibility to do that. Let me see more questions. You mentioned that in the final stage, you convert to Revit objects. I'm working on a project with curtain wall with curved path. Revit can draw it, so I'm using DirectShape. How to do it cleaner?
What do you mean by cleaner?
I'm not sure. Dilian, if you can just tell more.
You want to convert them into families, or?
Yeah, I think so. Like you mentioned that the final stage you convert to Revit native objects. Yeah, like to families. Is there any quick errands about that?
I think there are some native objects for the walls. If you go to the architectural component, you will see those wall components. You can create those walls based on the line, or maybe based on the area, or maybe the height. Or the other way is, if you are creating direct shape element, what you can do, you can use this generic template, and you can push this geometry as a family through that template. But sometimes this can be tricky, because in Revit there are certain categories, like if you're using floor, walls, it's very difficult to change those categories or change those families. So that's why maybe you can create some subcategories, and then you can assign these objects to those subcategories, and then you can push these objects into those families or those templates. But try to use it generic family, because I used to do it. I always use generic template, and then I try to push my geometry in Revit using that generic family. So the category would be generic models, not specific any.
We have some comment from Ralph. I think it was relating to the previous comment. I think you can use Barido in a normal wall and change material to glass. In the Spanish, it's a barrido, but I'm not sure what is barrido in Spanish.
Me
Let me translate. Let's see. Maybe it's important. Let me see it. English. Scanning. It said that it's scanning barrido. Do you know some scanning component?
No.
Okay. Will not see it. Let me see. There's more. In the meantime, I would like to also show that the next workshop from the Rhino Inside Revit series, it will be about Revit families. So Jaffe from McNeil, who is one of the creator of Revit inside Rhino Inside Revit, will be my guest in the next workshop in the 15th of January, a little bit different time. So if you have registered already for this workshop, so you will get notification for the all next workshop. So I will going to notify, and you will see how to create more native components. So you will compare what is the different methods of using that. I'm really looking forward to this one as well. But you, Jacqueline, you are also creating Revit families, right, with Grasshopper?
Yes. I think everyone should attend this one, because this Jeffy is a true gem, and he has contributed a lot. If you see on the rhino.inside.revit community, he's actively communicating with the people, and he's helping them. So I truly believe this workshop will be beneficial for all those who are looking forward to create some families, and how they can efficiently use these workflows. So I think, it's good to have Jeffy on the webinar.
Yeah, he is really engaged in the community. So I will paste the link. So Revit families, so you can register in that. And coming back, Barrido is a sweep. So with the sweep, but I'm not sure if it will be easier. How to put native anchor bolts in your base plate. Have you tested? Is there already component for? I think there is missing that one in the API.
Yes. So what I created this tutorial. I just showed them, like, if you have some detail item. So in detail item, you can create this kind of anchor bolts, and you can create this parametric family, and you can connect your parameters to that family. And for instance, if you have some specific type of bolts, you can just place your bolts using add detail item component in your sections, and just simply tag those sections.
Correct. Let me see. I think there is still just two more questions. So let's go to it. And yeah, we are looking forward to the all the updates from the Rhino inside Revit. And let me see. I want to also show the LinkedIn profile of Jacqueline, who was my guest today. For those who are interested in the workflows, so he is posting regularly about Rhino inside Revit. I will paste it also his LinkedIn profile into the chat. So please follow Sakline, and for sure you will get updates with the new tips and tricks. I think we are going to, if you of course will find time for the next one.
Mhm.
Like I think like you had gather lots of tips and tricks that you haven't shown today, all of them.
Yes.
So maybe the next one. So maybe the next one will be all these hidden gems for the next session. I really appreciate that you've been my guest, and yeah, I've been waiting for this comment all the workshop, and now finally we have it. Biggest up and downs, Dynamo versus Grasshopper. It took almost 2 hours before someone asked about Dynamo. I'm really surprised.
I think for the beginners, it will not be a difficult decision to choose between Dynamo or Grasshopper. Just open Grasshopper one side and just open Dynamo on the other side, and try to place some components and just create a simple line. Or maybe if you want to create a simple family, or just want to import some parameters. And trust me, it's a lot more easier to do in Grasshopper using Rhino.inside.revit rather than using Dynamo.
But Jakob, I have already planned later in next year, 2025, to actually organize the battle between Dynamo and Grasshopper. I'm going to invite Dynamo experts. I'm going to invite Grasshopper experts, and people also experts that are already using Dynamo and Grasshopper. So actually, I'm really looking forward to this one, because it will be a huge battle between Dynamo and Grasshopper. And for sure, I already know that both of them are good, and there is no simple answer. But some of them are better for some specific thing. There is no going back to Dynamo after Grasshopper. It's comment for Olga. Yeah, I think we can agree that, especially that Dynamo, like for me, from my perspective as an engineer, Dynamo can connect only with Autodesk. Grasshopper can connect to all the different software, and I think this is only like one of the reasons why we supposed to use Grasshopper. Like if your company are going to switch the software, if you are going to change company, so you are more attractive on the market if you can, for example, connect with different softwares if you are not using one of them. And just to finish, and okay, there is more Dynamo. I think Dynamo is more friendly for further structure calculation for your workflow than Grasshopper. For example, using Autodesk Robot for calculation. And yes and no. Actually, we have already the next workshop after. So the next workshop is we are going to have is sorry, it's this one I'm going to share. at the stage. There will be about Revit families, but next one, number 3, will be how structure engineers can use Rhino inside Revit. So I think it's not that easy just to say that it's more friendly, but yeah, but it can be true. So I really recommend to join our next workshop. And I really like the one comment from Rupal, which I save it for the later. Early, when 3D model was not accepted by everyone, then it was easy to do everything really quick in AutoCAD. Now it's the same thing with Grasshopper script. In both cases, overall time is getting better. So yeah, I really like this comment, and if I'm going to bet my money, I will bet my money on the parametric way of working, the same as it was before when we make a transition from paper to AutoCAD, then from 3D model. So this is the same revolution which is going right now.
Yeah, it's always boils down to the task at hand. So if you're doing something, you can do it fast in Revit without using anything, just do it. If you think it's repetitive and there are going to be changes and you have to do it over and over again, it's better to spend some time and create a workflow. And after that, just recomputing the workflow, opening new file, recomputing the workflow, and you will have your results efficiently, and like you will have less errors, trust me.
Yeah, this is a really good end of the workshop. What about our model? Do we have this model after updates, or it was too many items at the once?
I think I opened more than one model, so it's like still taking time. So I will just cancel this one, and I will just
open again. Okay, thank you. We have already 2 hours. Thank you a lot. Lots of great content. For those who register for this one, they will get an invitation for the next one. So that's all. Thank you very much. Sorry if we haven't answered all of your questions, but I think I went through. If you still missing answer for your question, just find us on the LinkedIn. I posted LinkedIn for Saklein, so you can also make a question to you. So thank you, Zaid. Thank you very much. Oh, really great comment. See you in the next one. I really recommend. Great stuff. Lots of good comments for the workshop. See you. Bye bye.
Okay, thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.